Why is LIHTC dramatically ineffective? Let me start off by saying it has made millions of units, I think over 2 million in the last few decades. So it hasn't been completely useless. But let me draw you through 3 different ways of how it's dramatically ineffective, and it could be massively improved by the government if they so choose to. Number 1, scraps. Number 2, cost. And number 3, risk. Jumping into scraps. You have a whole bunch of big time developers, like I mentioned in the previous video, fighting over scraps. And I'll draw that through in the next few points here, but really you're talking about 50 developers that are massive, that are just fighting over, let's say, a piece of land. That piece of land is going to be developed and pitched to the state government saying, hey, we could build 300 units here. We could build 100 units here. Well, there's going to be 5 to 10 other big developers that say, oh, we have a similar thing we could do not that far away over here or over there or that, this and that. So you got 10 different people fighting over approval of the state government. So the 9 people that are putting all this money out, putting the land under contract, talking about dozens of acres at a minimum, likely have a full-time salaried person making all the calculations for this stuff. All this is happening for scraps. And it's ultimately to save somewhere between 10 to maybe 25% at its max over the lifetime cost. And you're saying, Ivan, that doesn't sound like scraps, but if you think about a 5-year project, you're saving 25%. Versus our strategy of just buying something that's making money day one for affordable housing and helping people day one. I think it is scraps. I think that 10 to 25% could be made in the first year instead of wasting time and going after a state government institution that is known for bureaucracy all over the place. Even Mark Cuban said himself, the government is wildly known for taking things way longer than they ever should. That's why the private institutions, private business is a lot more effective, because there's motivation to get the money in the door at ASAP. Number 2, the risk. You have probably multiple salaried people making all these calculations, which, by the way, you have to be certified for. And if you don't do it right, you lose your entire tax savings for 15 to 30 years, depending on the duration of what you're applying for. So everything has to be down to the cent in perfection, which no human has ever been perfect. So the risk to me is just way too high, especially for somebody that's growing into an international company. Why would I want to just throw away hundreds of thousands of dollars to something that might not even get approved? That's not fair to my investors. That's not fair to really the people that need it desperately. It's just a wash. That's risk for you. That's why I just think it's too risky of a proposition. Last point, the cost of it all. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars being tied up for, who knows, 5 to 10 years, like I mentioned before. There's too much cost there. The value of $1 is worth more today than it is tomorrow. Now add, hundreds of tomorrows, thousands of tomorrows, where you don't even know if that piece of land is going to be housing a bunch of people, 5 to 10 years from now. You don't know if that area is going to be dilapidated, if all the industries are going to run away in that time period. The cost, the risk, the scraps, it's all just too risky, and the way LIHTC is trying to incentivize developers to do this stuff. So my push to the government is to make this a lot more incentivizing to developers like Commonwealth, to like other larger developers, so that it can move forward at scale. There's no reason that 2 million can't be transitioned to 20 million within 10 years instead of waiting a couple decades. Let's just make it a lot simpler and make it so that you don't have to put out all this risk and cost and scraps, fighting over scraps just all over the place. So hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again, and this was why I think LIHTC is massively ineffective. All right, see ya.